Hello, welcome to another episode of Coach Chrysler's Convos. I am here today with Dr. Thomas Hemingway. Hello, how are you?
Aloha, doing fantastic. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, thank you so much for being with me today. Before we get into your health journey, tell me where you are and what you do, so everybody who is listening gets to know a little bit about you.
All right. Well, today in the world, I'm in Hawaii, which is where I spend part of my life, and another part we spend in Utah, and another part in Florida. We kind of move around a bit. We love the mountains and the ocean. We love the outdoors. I can't complain. We are not necessarily sun worshipers. We just love to be outside. We love to see nature, to be in it, experiencing it. We love the vitamin D. So our family just loves to be out and about in places that are beautiful, that are natural, where you can just get out and play. So we love nature. I'm a physician of 20 plus years. I kind of started in a traditional sort of clinic and hospital background. And then about 2 years ago, decided that that wasn't quite the best use of my time with respect to how I could really help people get healthy from the inside out, truly tackle things at the root. Because no offense to Western medicine, where I did my training, I just appreciate that a lot of people aren't getting well. We're putting
Mhm.
band-aids oftentimes on their medical symptoms. We're giving prescriptions. We're doing the quick fix sort of band-aid approach, but people aren't getting better for the long term. In fact, right now in this country, in the US, we're really the least healthy that we've ever been. And for the first time in over 100 years, the current life expectancy in the US is actually going down. And this is actually pre-COVID. People might say, oh, well, that's just COVID. We had the downturn. But actually, no, prior to COVID, our life expectancy in the US was already trending downwards. Of course, it got exaggerated with COVID because we're not very healthy as a society. And so I decided that now is the time to really help people get healthy from the inside out, tackle health problems at the root. And so that's been my focus the last couple of years, which I know is right in sync with what you love to do. So
Yes, it is. Wow. So Hawaii, Utah, and Florida. Oh my goodness, those are three amazing places where I bet you get to see all kinds of just beauty and fresh air and just enjoying the outside. So that's fantastic. And so now I want to talk a little bit about your personal health journey and kind of, thinking a few years back or maybe several years back, what it was like for you in terms of your health. Were you healthy as a kid, as a teenager, active? Did you deal with any sort of, health issues? Tell me a little bit about that.
all right, I'd love to. And let's just start with this. I'm going to be turning 50 soon. And I
Wow.
honestly feel better today than I did in my 20s, 30s, and certainly most of the 40s. And that's no accident. And this is because I recognize that although I've been sort of healthy-ish my whole life, I've
Hmm.
been super active. I think my saving grace is I just can't sit still. Even talking to you here, I'm
Yeah.
bouncing around, I'm standing. I just love to move. So I think that kind of bought me a lot of time, especially during my 30s and into my 40s, where I recognize that getting older is not what people sort of think. I have people tell me every day that, oh my gosh, I'm in my 30s and I'm not supposed to feel good anymore. That's garbage. You can feel good into your 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s if you do the right things. And so when I was in my 30s, I thought I was perfectly healthy, but yet I was starting to get achy every day. I started popping NSAIDs or ibuprofen on almost a daily basis because I had aches and pains, and I wasn't going to let those aches and pains slow me down. So I was still going to be super active. I love to get outside, be it surfing, running, biking, hiking, whatever it is outdoors. I just love to do on a daily basis something. And when I hit my 30s, I was just not like I used to be. At least I didn't feel the same. I was achy all the time. I just didn't sleep as well as I used to. I was getting headaches. I just didn't feel great. But I just thought, like many, I'm getting older. Maybe this is just
Yep.
what it's supposed to be like. And what I've learned now is that was mostly garbage. It's something I told myself in my mind, and things I didn't recognize about what I was doing. So I've always had a pretty reasonable diet. I eat mostly real food, whole foods, fruits, vegetables, healthy proteins that are natural, that come from the field and things like that. I've never been much of a junk food person or a snack food person, but I did, indulge in, the evening, let's say, bowl of ice cream for many years. That was kind of my kryptonite, was ice cream. I used to eat ice cream almost every evening. That was kind of how I just got through the day. I looked forward to
Hmm.
that at night when I'd get home from work. And what's interesting is maybe a little bit less than 10 years ago, I recognized that even though I was really active and I wasn't gaining weight, but the things that I was eating, not in large amounts, but eating, say, that bowl of ice cream every
Enough.
night, were really starting to affect me. And
Yeah.
although I didn't gain weight because I was active, I didn't feel good either. I was achy in all of my joints. I didn't sleep well. My wife tells me I was a little bit irritable. And right about this time, I noticed that,
Yeah.
what matters so much, and I think is our biggest lever in our health and in our life, is truly what ends up on the end of our fork. It's what we put into our mouth. And food can either be the best possible medicine that we can literally enjoy and also nourish our body with, or food can actually be a slow poison. And it just depends on what choices we make.
Hmm.
And we choose usually at least 3 times a day what we're going to put into our mouth, sometimes more than that if we have a snack or whatnot. And I really think that's the biggest lever. And back, say, in my 30s, I didn't recognize that. I ate mostly whole foods, but I was still having, some junk food here and there. I had, like I mentioned, ice cream almost every evening. I would drink some fruit juices, which I almost never drink any juices anymore because that's essentially just pure sugar. Just eat the whole fruit, eat the whole thing. Don't, what I tell people now is eat your fruit, don't drink it. So I experienced some of the things that I think most of us do when we don't have sort of this optimal whole foods diet, which is inflammation. Inflammation
Hmm.
was causing my joint aches and pains, and also even some of my sort of mental health symptoms where I wasn't as sharp. I had some brain fog. I was maybe a little bit moody, according to my wife. And that's also inflammation. It's called neuroinflammation. And it literally comes from eating processed foods, highly
Hmm.
processed grains and the so-called sugars and carbohydrates that are highly processed, flours, and even a lot of the milk products and things that are highly processed. And so once I kind of ditched that and just focused on really eating just whole food and not having my evening bowl of ice cream, I mean, things started to really take a turn for the better. And I literally feel now as good as I did in my 20s, and I'm just about at 50. So
Wow. Wow, that is awesome. You mentioned something that I think is so important for people to understand, and that is that you hadn't gained weight really,
uh-huh.
but you could tell that something wasn't right based on how you were feeling. So you were achy and you weren't sleeping well and you were moody and these different things that were going on. And so I would love for you to kind of maybe go into that a little bit more because when we think about health, weight a lot of time is attributed only to health. It's like if you weigh a certain amount or under a certain amount, then you're healthy. But
Mm-hmm.
that's not necessarily the case. So I would
Yeah.
love for you to share a little bit more about that.
Yeah, no, totally true. And like I said, in my particular case, I've always been about the same weight, but I've had differing levels of inflammation. And
Hmm.
if you were to look on the inside, I suspect, say, 10 years ago, before I was super focused on just eating real foods, I probably had more what's called visceral fat, which is
Hmm.
basically fat on the inside. It's kind of like skinny on the outside, fat on the inside. So if you just look at a person that looks normal weight, you can't just tell if they're healthy or not, because they could be fat on the inside or have this so-called visceral fat, which comes from eating processed food and this type of highly processed grains and flours and seed oils that we call them. We can talk about that later. But what I noticed is that although I was the same weight, I had different energy levels back when I wasn't as focused on diet and also other things which we haven't gotten to, but like sleep, for example. I never used to value my sleep very much. Part of that was my medical upbringing. If you slept more than 4 to 6 hours a night, you were considered weak, and it was considered unnecessary, a waste of time. You know, in my medical training, if you slept too much, you were considered slothful, and it was kind of like a sign of weakness. And so I never really slept more than 4 to 6 hours a night for over 20 years in my
Wow.
initial medical training, and even in my initial work. I mean, I was working 80 to 100 hours a week, and I wasn't sleeping much. And that, I was pretending that it didn't affect me, but it really does affect you. Besides diet, sleep is a huge lever that you can play into your advantage if you get quality 7 or 8 hours of sleep every night. And then if you incorporate other things that are healthful as well, like stress optimization techniques, like, you know, daily movement of some kind, exercise, some weightlifting, resistance training, what have you, can be body weight. You got to do these kinds of healthy things daily as well. And really, when you incorporate all of the above, which is, like you were mentioning at the outset, sort of the lifestyle habits, that's when you really kind of get to the gold mine of health, and you notice it in how you feel. The way that I look probably looks similar to how I looked, you know, back in my 30s, as far as the outer silhouette. You know, I've always been an active guy, but on the inside, I can tell you I'm way less inflamed. I never reach for any kind of anti-inflammatory because I don't ache anymore. My joints don't ache, which is counterintuitive. You'd think I'm 20 years older. Why wouldn't my joints ache? I'm just as active as I ever was. I'm moving my body at least once a day, and often during the day, in just simple activities like air squats or dumbbell weights that I keep at the side of my desk, things like that. But
Mhm.
back in my 30s, I just felt worse. You know, I looked the same maybe on the outside. Maybe I wasn't glowing and smiling as much. My wife tells me I was a little bit more moody back then,
Yeah.
but I might have looked the same in a silhouette because my weight didn't really change. But
Mhm.
my inflammation certainly has gone down significantly with valuing these simple things like my foods, my sleep, my stress management, moving my body on a daily basis, paying attention also to what I consider one of the sort of secret recipes, which is your gut health. You know, a lot of people don't talk about this a lot in Western medicine. I think most of us that are health conscious know about the gut and the microbiota, if you will, all the organisms that live in us, on us, and within us, and how important they are. If you get them healthy, they will help you be healthy. And it's just an amazing symbiotic, synergistic relationship. So when I focused on those things, everything changed, and I
Yeah.
just feel better than ever. And looking forward to 50, 60 and beyond, like, I'm smiling about it because it's an exciting time. I can't wait for it. I'm not dreading it because I feel
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. It's such a beautiful thing to be able to embrace the present, but also look forward to into the future, feeling hope and excitement. Because I do think in our culture, we spend a lot of time um, um, assuming that old age is slowing down and low libido and just feeling lonely or having all of these aches and pains and you're going to have some sort of surgery and all these really like sad and depressing things when there can be so many exciting things that happen as we grow older. And I know that you are a family man. You've mentioned your wife several times, and you have 6 children. Obviously, you want to be there for your children in a way that is very active and engaging, and that they're going to remember you being there with them and not sitting down and sitting back and watching them play, but actually getting up on the beach and splashing around and playing with them and stuff. So yeah, that's so beautiful, just to think about and look forward to in a very hopeful way.
Yeah,
So
let me
go
just say
ahead.
one thing about that. That is so critical, and it's right here rests between our ears. The outlook that we have on our own future, how we view our future. Like you said, we can look at it as, oh crap, I'm getting older. I'm going to have more aches and pains and maybe a surgery. I'm going to be less able to do things. If we view it in a negative sort of future perspective, I mean, that's likely what we're going to get. But if we view it a positive way, and there's been lots of research on that, that literally the simple act of envisioning your future in a positive fashion, where you actually look forward to your future rather than dreading it, like
Yeah.
that in and of itself can literally add 7 to 10 years to your life. Just that
Wow.
positive approach to your own future. It's so powerful. And I don't feel like we talk about it much. And it's not this weird, nebulous voodoo thing. Like it's so real and tangible. And I mean, if you just start the beginning of your day with gratitude and with hope, and like today is a great day for a great day. That's what I tell my kids. Like, what a great day it is today. It's going to be an awesome day. Like, if you start your day that way, it can literally change everything and your future. It literally can change your future. And
Yeah.
it's simple and it's
Wow.
free.
That's exactly. There you go. It's the low, low price of free, which is awesome too. So you've mentioned a couple of times your medical training. So I want to just touch on that really quickly because one thing you said that stood out to me was that if you sleep too long, past 5 or 6 hours, then, you're slothful or you're lazy or you're not being very productive, which seems crazy with what we know about sleep through research, right? But what we know about sleep. And so it's interesting that medical doctors go through this intense training and yet are kind of starved of this essential nutrient, if you will. So, can you share a little bit about that?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, this is not something I'm proud of in the Western medical sort of training, because sleep was never valued, at least when I did my training 20 plus years ago. I think now they're getting a little bit more proactive with this. They're starting to limit the work hours of the training doctors and residents and things. But certainly when I was there 20 plus years ago, sleep was considered for the weak. Like we knew that you had to sleep, we knew that you had to get some sleep, but we just didn't really treasure it. We didn't really value it. And to, our credit, in those days, we didn't really understand all of the benefits. There's been some great research that has come forward in just the last decade. Starting in about 2012, Dr. Illiff and colleagues noticed this whole sort of natural rejuvenation process that occurs when we are sleeping. It's this whole system in the brain that flushes out toxins, that rejuvenates and revives our cells there, that really only happens when we're sleeping. It's called the glymphatic system. That
Mm,
wasn't even known when I was in my medical school or when I did my initial doctoring. We didn't even know about that. So now that we do know about that, it's so awesome because I can lean to that we have science to support how important, crucial, and critical sleep is. And we all know what happens when we don't get a good night's sleep, right? We feel crappy. We perform poorly, both
mhm.
mentally, athletically. We're not in our best shape if we don't get a good night's sleep. But now there's tons of data behind it. We know the physiology. All of this sort of amazingness happens while we sleep. Everything from the autophagy that happens to the rejuvenation that happens through the brain and the glymphatic system, the removal of the toxins and the replenishing and renewing of the cells. I mean, it's just something so beautiful that is so simple, but essentially can only really occur while we are sleeping. So now there's even more support for this, discussion that sleep is critical. I can't continue to say I'll sleep when I'm dead, because that's what I used to say 20 years ago.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I was the biggest offender of this. And
Yep.
and now that I'm familiar with the physiology, the research, these new studies that have come about in the last 10 years, and I've experienced it, like I sleep now on average 7 or 8 hours a night, and I feel amazing. I wake
Mhm.
up refreshed, rejuvenated, in a good mood. And that's not the way that it used to be. I mean, it's amazing how something so simple could have such profound effects.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, sleep is huge. And I think, again, in our culture, we downplay it a lot. It's very underrated. But I do think we are starting to see the light a little bit about the importance of sleep and, all those types of things. So thank you for sharing that. That was really good information. So my last question for you is, you know, if somebody is out there and they're like, I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of on the fence. Like, I hear you, Dr. Hemingway. I got to change. I got to put away the bowls of ice cream every night, or, I got to get moving. And I, I don't know, like, what would you say to them?
I would just say one thing at a time. Maybe you don't go 0 to 60 and don't have ice cream ever again, because I'll be honest, I just had in our family, my daughter just had her birthday. And
Mhm.
on her birthday, I had a couple of scoops of ice cream. I didn't eat, 2 or 3 bowls. I didn't even have one bowl. It was kind of like a half or a quarter of a bowl because I still like the taste of ice cream. So it doesn't
Mhm.
have to be. I think too often we adopt this sort of all or nothing mindset. And so if
Yes.
we do that and then we fail, then we get hard on ourselves and we're like, oh, it wasn't even worth it anyway. And we just go back to doing whatever we were doing, and sometimes even magnify. Then we eat even more ice cream because we feel like we're a failure. So don't adopt that approach. Just take small steps. Maybe the first week, just say, hey, I'm not going to put any additional ice cream in my freezer this week. I'm just not going
That's
to pick it up
great.
at the grocery store. So you have what's there, you use what's there, maybe on a more sparing level. And then the next time you go shop, you don't pick up that package of Oreos or that extra bottle of wine or that extra 6 pack, whatever it is, because there's so many things out there that could be, really hurting our chances of achieving optimal health from just simple processed foods that are so readily available to things like the overconsumption of alcohol or wine at night, or my vice was ice cream. I literally had it every single night. So don't adopt the all or nothing approach. Just do a little at a time. Maybe the next trip to the grocery store, you don't pick up anything sweet like that, and you just pick up a bunch of fresh blueberries or strawberries or raspberries or the fruit that's in season right now. It's the summertime. We have watermelon available. In Hawaii, we have mango and papaya and all these amazing, delicious, sweet fruits that are available. Maybe just substitute those in your shopping cart this week for any kind of processed sweets that you might have purchased before. And so just one thing at a time. And I think if you start with that, you can only go upwards. And I like to tell people to add things to their diet. Every
Yes.
time when we think about this, we think about subtracting, right? Oh, take out the Oreos, take out the Cheetos, take out the chips and all that. But what are we going to add into our diet? We're going to add, let's
Yes.
say this week, if you're in Hawaii and you can get star fruit and you've never had star fruit before, put some star fruit in your grocery cart, or put something that you haven't had before that's real food and try it. I recommend people try at least one new food item per week that's a real food. And then as you go along, you'll be surprised that you're like, oh my gosh, I never would have thought I might like kimchi or sauerkraut or whatever, like something that you maybe thought as a kid you could never eat. Now you're like, oh my gosh, that was so amazing. I love the spice that was in. I love this natural fresh fruit or vegetable that I never tried before. And just add those things slowly into your diet, one week at a time, one or two new things, and you'll be surprised how far you'll come in a couple of months. And you literally won't even be picking up these kind of previous vices, if you will, because you won't even miss them. Because as you do that, you feel better, your gut feels better, your cravings go down, and it's just a win-win. And it's fun. It's fun to
Yeah.
try new things. Who doesn't like to try new things, right?
Yeah. Oh my
One
gosh,
thing at a
that
time.
that is such great advice. So let me just summarize really quickly. Don't go all or nothing from right from the beginning. Give, new things a try. Um, Try to add something. Don't think about deprivation, but add in some good things into your cart each week, or every other week, or what have you. But give yourself some room to try new things and to add fresh, whole foods. And yeah, that is fantastic advice. So thank you so much, Dr. Hemingway, for chatting with me. Y'all, if you do not follow Dr. Thomas Hemingway on social media, I follow him on Instagram. And he is a plethora of great information. He posts lots of really good videos on different topics and gives tons of information. He also has a podcast called Modern Medicine Movement. Check out that podcast. Again, lots and lots and lots of different topics he covers. He shares his medical knowledge, his he geeks out on all kinds of really cool things, and it's amazing. So, guys, check that out. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, you have a book coming out as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It should be out in about 6 weeks' time. It's called Preventable: Five Powerful Practices to Avoid Disease and Build Unshakable Health. And if you want to get on my waiting list to get that book, just hop on over to my website. It's thomashemingway.com. My name is spelled just like Ernest Hemingway spelled his, with one M. So THOMAS. Hemingway, which is HEMINGWAY.com. You can go to my website and there's a link there to join the wait list for the book. There's links to the podcast, links to my social media, all of that. So thomashemingway.com. Would love to see you there. Would love to see you on Instagram, where I do spend a bit of time each and every day.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And y'all check out Dr. Hemingway. And I will see you next time on Coach Chrysler's Convos.
Aloha.